quote unquote young.
Identifying self, I suppose. And,
with my kids, I'm considered really old.
Having to be open.
My 9-year-old asked me one time how was slavery.
I'm going to ask two questions from that. One is, what advice or what comments do you make about those?
It was a joke, but
in my words,
that's how
live their lives on social media, such that you can actually look at what you can look at their social media posts and see everything that they do, what they wore, what their hair looks like, what they ate for supper, all that kind of stuff.
Dynamic,
but that's sometimes termed as an influencer.
We're right in the
and
middle.
Getting paid for that. So how do you? What comment do you have to manage?
I have friends who
those
are grandparents.
Two sides of the same coin?
I have friends who have never been married. I have friends on their third marriage. So it's this space of life is quite interesting. I can relate to what the younger millennials and Gen Zs are facing, but they don't necessarily look at me all the time as being able to relate. But then some of them will say, "Oh, you are pretty cool. I can talk to you." Mm-hmm. I have really dear friends in their early 30s. I have really dear friends in their late 50s.
My kids,
and
so
I learned
for years and years,
all of them.
Nobody even knew that I was married.
It's a very interesting
because
dynamic
that time
that I find myself in.
To be dancing and performing
as far as advice,
as a married woman, like should you be in the kitchen?
Younger people
synchronized. Now nowadays,
peer
that's
pressure and this
Nairobi.
kind of thing.
That's not the case. People don't feel that way anymore. But at that time,
to allow yourself to
it was different. And one thing about Kenya,
and it
it's
also
changing
takes
quickly. It's not like Bermuda. That's
understanding
more,
where you can be safe.
Things are improving
because it's not every space that deserves our full selves.
Yeah, so at that time,
it's not
Bermuda Live on YouTube. Subscribe now.
Everything related to dance, but
one space may get a portion of me
until
another space may get a different part.
So once I showed up pregnant. It's now the tabloids went looking because they never saw me with anybody, and they went looking for this really, salacious story, and it was really boring. You just found a family.
It actually saves our big
so that was my choice. So I think
to keep up.
The younger generation just needs to know that it's
our breath. We don't feel the need to gossip because I don't need to talk about anybody. I'm a girl's girl. I want everyone to succeed. Okay. What else? It saves our relationships, our reputations. We don't go picking a mate because what will everyone else think of this person? We don't need to perform the parts of our lives on social media, whether that might be pregnancy, engagement, divorce, or any part of our life. We can share it, but we don't have to perform it. That does not have to become our main thing on social media. So it doesn't have to become our brand. A lot of times we'll nowadays we are pushed and encouraged to make our key life experiences our whole brand. So that means that I must share every key detail of my life and appear as if I'm an expert in that area with a microphone in front of my face. And then if something turns for the worst, then that brand is dissolved, which is quite sad, quite scary. So we don't have to do that. If we want to, we can, but we don't have to. We're also relinquished from the feeling that our hobbies have to be monetized. We can actually have hobbies that we do just because we enjoy them, that never make us money. We don't have to feel like this push to capitalism that every hobby has to be something that could be the next thing that makes us rich. There might be something there, but not everything has to be. We can just create.
And that's, well, obviously you've packed a lot in that comment there in terms of advice or comments to younger persons, which is the identifying self, I suppose, and understand the strength in that, and not having to be open and compared to everyone else. I'm going to ask two questions from that. One is, what advice or what comments do you make about those who, in my words, almost live their lives on social media, such that you can actually look at the social media posts and see everything that they do, what they wore, what their hair looks like, what they ate for supper, all that kind of stuff. But that's sometimes termed as an influencer, and people getting paid for that. So what comment do you have to manage those two sides of the same coin?
No, I don't have a problem with being an influencer. If someone is an influencer, that's definitely their choice. You can be an influencer. You can share a lot on social media without sharing a lot. There's a way that you can share an aspect of your life or a part of something that's your brand without revealing every single thing about you, or keeping some mystery, keeping some privacy to you and your family. That's basically your choice. When I was in Kenya, it was very important to me that my family not appear in the public eye, especially my kids. So for years and years and years, nobody even knew that I was married or had kids, because at that time in Kenya, to be dancing and performing as a married woman is like, shouldn't you be in the kitchen? So the brands would not have synchronized. Now, nowadays, that's changed in Nairobi. That's not the case. People don't feel that way anymore. But at that time, 15 years ago, it was different. And one thing about Kenya, it's changing quickly. It's not like Bermuda that's more static. Things are improving and developing at a very fast rate. So at that time, all you saw was dance, and everything related to dance. But you did not see my family until I got pregnant with Rain. Okay. So once I showed up pregnant, now the tabloids went looking, because they never saw me with anybody, and they went looking for this really, salacious story, and it was really boring. You just found a family. So, so that's, so that was my choice. So I think the younger generation just needs to know that it's their choice, it's their right, it's their prerogative to share an aspect. If you were an influencer, a real legit influencer, not you think you're an influencer, you were actually getting brand deals, or you're working towards brand deals, you're getting paid, this is helping whatever role you're doing, it's allowing you to continue to get more opportunities, or you have a plan to get more opportunities, that's an influencer. If you're just doing it and there's no sort of opportunity, remuneration, or plan towards that, you're not an influencer, you're just there.
Okay. And if you will, just want to clarify this, not clarify, for the listening audience to be aware of your knowledge, experience from a social media point of view, because you're not speaking as someone that doesn't know. I know your background, right? So just, if you will, talk to the audience about your background and expertise in terms of social media, so they understand that you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, okay. So my background is not just in social media. My background is in communication strategy, which involves writing. It involves social media. It can involve voiceover. It can involve so many things. But basically, it's looking at the whole strategy of this particular brand, or this particular aspect of the brand, and it needs to have communication. It needs a particular narrative needs to be crafted about this brand product. What is the best way to do it? And then crafting a holistic strategy around that brand, and then executing that whole strategy. So I'm not a social media person. People get that confused. I'm not just a poster. It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. And different types of brands require different types of support. Yes, I do know what I'm talking about.
Correct. And I just wanted to make sure the listening audience understood what you were saying from a point of view of experience and expertise, as opposed to just talking about, because it was interesting when you were talking about the influencer role in terms of what it is and what it isn't. Effectively, if it's legitimate, quote unquote, it's a monetized process. And even with that, as you said, it's not everything about you, it's a certain aspect about you, as opposed to revealing your entire self on social media.
Yeah, and in Bermuda it's a bit tricky, because it's we're not on the in the jurisdiction that TikTok accounts can be, quote unquote, monetized. So that has to happen in other ways. Like I said, that would be more than opportunity way, where let's just say a particular corporate brand would notice you and pay you to run some sort of campaign, and that's how the monetization might happen, not directly from the account, because we're not there yet. I wish we would be there. That would be great for a lot of people, but we're not there right now.
And now the flip side of that is really, I think, post-COVID, a lot of people have used their skills, their desire, whatever they enjoy doing, to monetize that in a positive way to assist in their normal economic lifestyle, right? And the other thing that comes to mind is there are huge amounts of baked goods that are available now. And so talk to us a little bit about that, about how you should monetize, or what's the benefits, or the guardrails around monetizing your passion.
Your passion or your hobby. So there's a guardrail. I'm not sure what that looks like for each person, because I do a lot of different things. I know how to make jam and pickles and kombucha, and that, am I going to monetize it? Probably not. But different things, other parts of me that I love can more easily be monetized, which might be more the teaching yoga, the dance, and that kind of thing. So I think that's individual to each person. Okay. If they're going to the baked goods idea, how are they displaying that? How does that look like something that someone wants to engage in? Is it easy to place an order? Have they done all the background research for, to comply health-wise? In Bermuda, there's all of those kinds of things you must do. It really varies from brand and product for people. So depending on why they might want to monetize something or why not, it's really up to them. But I'm just understanding that when I say not all of our hobbies need to be monetized, it's just allowing us to free ourselves from the idea that something we love has to make us money. It could, but that might not be the thing. I like to make pickles, but that's probably not going to be the thing that pays my light bills. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's all.
Okay. Now what I want to do is have to listen audience again, thank you for joining us here on Magic 102.7 on a Sunday evening edition of Insight. Our guest this evening is Miss Joanne Burgess, who has explained that she is neither old nor young. It depends upon the context of the conversation and the level of influence that she has, because to some she is old, maybe ancient, as she would say. To others, she is quite young. And so we're having that conversation tonight. What I want to do is bring it home a little bit, when I say home, to Bermuda. And let's talk about some of the ideas that people will have, that you may have yourself, in terms of whether it be in commerce, whether it be in leadership or in social aspects, about just living in Bermuda and how we're going to adjust. So whether it be home ownership, whether it be just buying groceries, having children, those type of things.
What's the question, sorry?
Give us some comments in terms of what people are saying to you about how do you manage, like say, cost-wise. Let's do that, cost living first.
It's interesting because if we look at the boomer generation, when they were in their 20s, a house would have been, $50,000? Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not a finance person.
Well, let's say less than 100,000.
Less than 100,000. Yeah. And a plumber could make roughly 30,000 a year.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So do the math. They could own multiple houses.
Okay.
In several years, right? Take that to today. Things are really different. So a lot of times you have this discrepancy where the older generation are looking at, I would say, the older millennials and Gen Z and saying, well, all you got to do is just work hard, and not understanding that life is flipped. Expenses have ballooned, and it's very different than when they were in their early 20s. Just like I said, the idea that, you could have one income and be very good, whereas now everybody's basically got to work for the most part. And usually in my generation, people have their job and a side hustle. Mm-hmm. They have their job and a rental income. They have their job and a couple other side hustles. And that's the way that they're literally making it, as opposed to before, where, there was more time to kind of have latitude just with the one employment that they had. So nowadays, I think it takes a lot more strategy, a lot more support to be able to have the home ownership. As far as cost of living is concerned, I'm not here in any sort of political capacity this evening.
Yes.
But, I do understand, for a lot of people, even for me, it is a lot. When you see an apple that's $3 or something of that nature. And then like living in Kenya, I just want to go back to the watermelon thing, because I think the last year the watermelons were about $25. And I remember in Kenya we'd be complaining and like bargaining with the guy on the side of the road if they were over $2.50. Like, oh my God, you're trying to cheat us just because I'm a foreigner. Why is this watermelon $3? I can't believe it.
Beating submission, yes.
And this is a fresh watermelon from his garden, and then here it's like $25. So I remember $30 going to the market in Kenya, you would have enough vegetables and fruit to juice, bake, eat, for a couple of weeks. It was great. And then coming here, a lot of people can't afford fruits and vegetables at this moment. Their budget is easier for them to get things that are quick and easy. And we do need to do something about that. I would love for us to take the approach. I think it's New Zealand. I can't remember at a certain point, and I don't know if they kept it up, but I remember this was over 15 years ago. They were trying an initiative where everybody had to grow certain types of fruit trees or plant certain types of fruit trees in their yard. And that was to establish that at, I don't know how many years, 5-10 years, whenever they started fruiting, they would have these particular fruits. Everyone would have that. I don't know if they kept it up. I don't know how well it took off, but, I wish that, we could have something like that, or people, just grassroots people would just start doing those kinds of things, because those types of things would help, because we do have it. We have our loquats and our cherries. We have our dragon fruits, our lychees, our longs. These things grow here. Even mango specific types do grow here. But we do need to figure something out as far as sustainability and our food costs here.
Okay. I'm going to go back to the home ownership piece just for a minute. Only because I think it's interesting how your perspective in terms of, if you go back, let's say 20 years, for example, right, that the cost of a house might have been, let's say, 3 times the average wage, for argument's sake, whereas now it's going to be more than 10 times the average wage, for argument's sake. And I think that's an interesting perspective in terms of, obviously, a lot of details behind about the numbers and the mortgages and that kind of thing, right? But that stark reality in terms of the economics of it has all changed. And so with that reality, what are your friends, or what are you saying in terms of how do people manage then, in terms of, okay, do they give up on the idea of home ownership, or do they figure out a different way, or do they do different things, or do they just figure it out in terms of renting? What's the thought you think?
I feel like I've seen people do all kinds of different things. Some are still buying houses or buying apartments or cottages in that regard. I see people going in together, a couple of friends, and buying. I see, a lot of people are also blessed to inherit a home or live in the homestead, which is really great. So people are able to benefit off of legacy and the fact that those who came before have done the hard work. So in this case, now that the cost has ballooned, they're okay because that generation has made the way for them. Then you do have some that say, I'm not going to buy anything, I'm just going to continue to rent. So I think it really depends on the person and where they are and what type of access they have, what type of support they have. And I would really love for all of us to just be able to be okay with saying out loud that you receive support in some way or another. Because a lot of us, we like to pretend that we are self-made and we've done it all by ourselves. But, remembering along the way that there was some support, whether financial or encouragement or advice or otherwise, that support is what got you here. And when we are able to say out loud that there has been support, then there's no shame for the younger lot to not feel pressure to do things by themselves. I think that this idea of doing things by ourselves came from a time when there was no one before us that had maybe that knowledge or that access or that opportunity. But now that we've had a few generations where people do have that, we need to be more embracing of the community in that regard, and being okay with it's not taboo to receive support from your community, to receive advice, to receive a little hand-holding. It's been done in other cultures. So that's what I would say with that regard.
And I would offer that that's one of your deep thinking points in terms of letting it be okay to need assistance, or not to need it, but to know that somebody did help you along the way.
Yes.
And not so much because you're going to be advertising your personal circumstance, but making it okay for others.
Yeah.
What I will say from a government point of view, by the way, is that at a point in time, that was a challenge in that people that were fully eligible to receive assistance, they refused to do so because it was taboo, for sure.
I remember
Even though they appeared to the system, there was no, like during COVID time, for sure, there was no reason to be ashamed of needing assistance because it is what it is. And so that point you just made is very, very valid in my mind in terms of if those that receive assistance of whatever support in whatever format are able to say so that others that need it are comfortable saying the exact same thing.
Right. There's no need to suffer in silence.
Gotcha. Okay.
And there's no need to suffer because of ego. That's the worst kind of suffering, where there is help available.
Bermuda Live on YouTube. Subscribe now.
just be without. That is a sad reality that
Bermuda Live on YouTube. Subscribe now.
Aspire to or imitate or we think is the greatest is going to be that person who either has a lot of money, they may be attractive, or to be honest, I think that's the only two things. Yeah. Or they might be good athletes, for example.
Yeah, they can do something, they have something, or they look like something. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I guess that's my challenge now in terms of, can we let it go? It's difficult because that's what we are told to aspire to. Mm-hmm. So how do we handle that contradiction? In terms of is negative, has a negative impact on myself, my mental health, my physical health, and all the rest of it. But it's what society is pressing us to do.
You know what's so interesting? Fairy tales didn't end when we were children.
Interesting.
We like to tell children, oh, that's just a fairy tale. Cinderella you don't really marry the prince in real life, and you don't, fall into the deep sleep and the prince comes and kisses you or whatever and get followed around by all these dwarfs. That's silly behavior. But there are fairy tales that exist in social media, on TV, that's constantly telling us what we should be, what we should look like, what we should have. Those are fairy tales, and in adult fairy tales. And it's our choice to believe what we're told, or to say, actually, I'm going to take a different look at this. I'm going to take an objective view at this. I'm going to come out of the space of just being a receiver of information, and I'm going to critique the information that is coming at me and see if it works for me. Does it work for my family or not?
And again, that's I want to say easier said than done.
Very much.
And to be honest, one of the things which I will get in trouble for saying this, but I'll say it anyway because I think it's very, very appropriate in terms of when we see females, like clothing and stuff is normally it used to be for very petite size. When we know, I saw some research that the average woman is not petite.
Yeah.
So therefore, the idea of having all the clothing, whatever, pitched toward the petite person made no sense. I think now, in the past, maybe say 5 years, they've adjusted it such that is now for the, I guess, not the plus size, but the fuller size person.
It's getting better slowly, as far as, having more available options for all body types and all body sizes. It's moving very slow, though. Just very, very slow. As I understand, like the sizes are, like they'll push the sizes up, like they'll say, wow, you're really a 14, and probably like 20 years ago it was a 12. You haven't changed, it's just they've made you think that you're oh so big. And how I got over that whole body dysmorphia, having to fit in some sort of a box, and people would be like, oh, you're relatively small. Anyway, we're not going to go into what I think about myself, but when I traveled to China in the early 2000s and I went to the market, and one of the things I love to do, I love to collect dresses or pieces, cultural pieces from all around the world. I may wear it, I may not, but I love it. I just love that thing. And when I went to the silk market, I wanted to get, a silk dress with dragons on it and red and, all of that. And keep in mind, I was 19, so I was even smaller than I am now. And the woman said, oh, you're very big, extra, extra, extra large. Because, she's kept doing like this. She kept doing like this, right. A lot of junk in the trunk, I guess. So, very big, very big. And I was like, I'm not big. And, I think at size 4 at that time. But for China, I was extra, extra large in the silk market. And then that also caused me to think differently about our sizes and how we project different things onto women specifically as far as their body image and what is quote unquote acceptable and that kind of thing. So that shouldn't, I should say shouldn't, because it's hard. It's very hard, because even as a young child, those images are coming at you. The dolls are getting a little better now. There's more diversity there, but still the magazine covers and that kind of thing, they come at you and then they tell you what you should look like and what you should be. And, it doesn't necessarily fit who you are, you kind of feel out of it. That's why I really love like what Rihanna's doing as far as diversity in her runway shows and in her models and that kind of thing. You'll see models with vitiligo and redheads and like, you know, fuller figured dudes with dad bods, and it's great. You know, people in modeling in wheelchairs. And we never saw that in the 80s, 90s, even early 2000s. And now things, you know, if more businesses, and I don't have any brand connections, so I'm not trying to promote any brands, but if more businesses continue to evolve like that, we'll be in a better place.
Gotcha. And that's interesting because, as I said, we know that the average person is not petite, male or female.
Right.
And, you know, it's just a proper distribution that the majority are going to be between, you know, medium to, let's call it medium. Let's say something. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
And so again, I think, and I'll say it again intentionally, it's to talk again about the idea of the adult fantasy and how we overcome that, because again, many of us, I would suggest, are looking at these or believing these fantasies, and it's causing us to have a less than happy life, if you will, or a positive outlook.
Yeah, so I think, and this is not specific to gender.
Yeah.
So it can be, but I'll just, for the sake of the argument, I'll use gender, but it doesn't, if you find yourself fitting in different categories, then please replace that in your mind at that. So a lot of times little boys are given, you know, cars and trucks and these kinds of things. And there have been, you know, stories saying that we should actually give our little boys dolls because they actually learn how to be nurturing. But that's another conversation for another time. So we have, you know, the little boys have little trucks, and if you were a girl or other, and, you know, you had the trucks, then, you know, just replace that in your mind. But, and then, you know, we get older and we never really get rid of our toys. You know, you still want a toy, but now that toy is, you know, a big toy. And if you are a person that like to dress up and wear, you know, as a little kid and wear your Tinkerbell makeup, then did we ever really grow out of that? Or are we still dressing up? Are we still fitting some sort of image that we were as a little 9-year-old when we put on our costume or whatever we present to the world in a day? And, you know, understanding that's not necessarily all bad, but just knowing why we do something and being able to say that, yes, I like this thing, but whether or not I have it does not affect who I am. I think that's the thing. You can have the things. You can have the money to have the things, but it's not connected to your soul. It's not something that makes your character great or bad. It just is. It's a neutral thing, is what I think I'm getting at.
Sure. And to the listening audience, I want to say to you that branding obviously is very important. That's why companies do what they do, and they're very successful in doing it. But we have to, as Bo Burgess is saying, step back a bit and see the degree to which these things do tie to us and make us falsely present ourselves, especially if it's at a point whereby we're buying something that we can't really afford, and then we're struggling. We may have it to look at it, others to see it, but we're struggling. And I'm thinking, for example, now of a handbag that might cost, say, I don't know, $400.
Right.
Yes, it may look nice, but at the end of the day, really, have you been able to properly afford it in terms of not having to then forego other necessities or not?
That one.
That's the idea.
That one. And also I remember when we were moving to Kenya, and so many Bermudians were like, I wish I could, you know, move to Kenya and do what you guys are doing. And I asked one person, because it's not relevant to everybody, because some people, you know, definitely have different levels of experience. I asked someone, well, how many pairs of sneakers do you own? Or how many brand name? And they named like, what, I think 20 or something like that. So that's your ticket.
Okay.
That's more than your ticket to Kenya, actually. Sell your sneakers and you could come to Kenya too. They were like, oh, wait. So it's just sometimes it's the priorities, and that's not everyone's experience. But in that particular case, it was a challenge and a conversation for, you know, what society is telling us to have versus what was in that person's heart. They were grappling with seeing an opportunity, but holding on to these possessions that I don't know how often you're going to wear these things, but that was more important, most likely because of successful branding and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and which ties back to your skill set also, by the way, in terms of branding. It's okay, fine. This is the product, let's say, there's how do you want to get it to market? You have to do all these things, and then being successful is almost counterproductive in some respects, depending upon those who succumb to the marketing efforts.
Basically,
I've always maintained that, to be honest, as my personal perspective in terms of, I would probably be negative to the economy if I had my way, because I would say don't buy all these things, people, because you can't afford it, for example, or make sure it's within your priority, because it doesn't make sense. I think I know. Many years ago, there was a comment in terms of a parent said they could not afford a Bermuda school blazer. In the same photo, though, it was a child that had the most recent cell phone, which was much more expensive than the blazer. And so it's a question of priorities that we have to always make up. You've mentioned a few times living off Bermuda. I'm going to change topic a little bit. Talk to us a bit about your experience and decision to decide to leave Bermuda, and what similar thoughts, or if there are any similar thoughts about your friends now or your young people now that are in that same thought process.
Yeah, I mean, I did feel like I had reached a glass ceiling at that time, and there was nowhere for me to go professionally, creatively. I felt like I had reached it at that time. And I also felt the squeeze of kind of being in a fishbowl, whereas, you walk down the street and everyone's seeing you and everyone is, commenting on what you're wearing or what have you, or someone says they saw you here. It felt very overwhelming. It still does to a degree. And so looking for opportunities elsewhere where I wouldn't be judged for being, but that's Ball's daughter or so-and-so who went to that school
right.
or that church. It's just, here's my resume, here's my qualifications. Do you want me or not? Period. Not my last name, not just here it is. And of course I was looking in, the UK, US, typical places where Bermudians would look, because that's what we know generally. And at that time, those doors were not open to me, and so decided to spread the wings even more. And at that time, my then husband did get an opportunity in Nairobi, and we decided we'd go there, and I would continue my freelance work, and then eventually, I was able to get contracts. I had worked on getting contracts and that kind of thing. So as definitely, it is challenging in Bermuda when you've been away for a while and you've been surrounded by all kinds of different people who have different experiences and different ideas and cultural backgrounds, and then you come back to Bermuda and it's homogenous in the sense of everything I've just described. Now, having said that, it's become less homogenous over the years, but comparatively it is quite homogenous, and a lot of things do feel like they have stayed the same, or they're moving at a snail's pace, where you can go to another country and things feel a lot more dynamic. So it is a level of, and I remember in my 20s feeling discouraged because you come back to Bermuda for all these ideas and you're told, like, I have my degree, and someone will be like, because I read a book on that, so I know more than you. Okay. And you have your full degree in this subject, and it's kind of hilarious now that I think about it, but back then it felt so discouraging. So leaving after coming back for a while was a good thing for me. Career-wise, experientially wise, it was great. I'm happy that I raised my kids in Nairobi. That was a really good idea. So speaking to young people, it is okay to, come back to Bermuda and give what you can give. And if you feel like there's a stop point, definitely go explore the world elsewhere. But when you go, don't go with with a bitterness.
Okay.
Understand what Bermuda is. It's a small island. Most of us are related. It is what it is. It's just the nature of a small place. Anyone in a small country will have similar stories. But you leave with the idea, I'm going to go over here and do what I can do. And when that season is finished, I'll have more to bring back.
Okay.
And in my case, when you have more to bring back, not saying that it was easy coming back, but having more to bring back also opens up even more opportunities. And having the courage to think outside of just the US or the UK. What other places can give you those amazing experiences that you will carry with you for the rest of your life? And I think that's important as well.
And then two things I'm going to ask you, and it can be you or others' comments, I suppose. What was the decision to come back, or what was the experience to come back? And then I want you to also talk about, like you said, the idea if people do leave, it's not leaving because Bermuda's terrible. It's leaving recognizing that it's a positive thing to go, because sometimes what happens is, I'm leaving Bermuda because that place is terrible, and that's not good at all for you or for the whole narrative. But let's talk to both of those things in terms of whether it be you or others that you've known that have gone and come back. Is that, I forgot the word now, but the retransitioning back to Bermuda, how was that?
I always find it's harder to come back to a culture because you don't think that I have to get used to my own culture again. You already know this is you're going away, you got to get used to a new culture and maybe new language and all that. You're anticipating it, you're studying, you're preparing yourself. But we don't really prepare ourselves to come back because we're like, but I know this place. Okay. And I think that there should be a level of preparation and research and understanding what has changed, what hasn't changed, what's going on now, what's trending. Coming back, because I did feel a sense of discombobulation coming back. Just like I did moving to other countries.
Okay.
So, and I think for everyone coming back, that's very important. And then understanding just letting go of the entitlement. It would be great to come back and have the red carpet rolled out. I think we should have more support moving back to Bermuda, especially for those of us who have gone and made a mark wherever we were globally. But until that happens, when you come back off the plane, there's no makeup artist to do your makeup and stylists and security guards and people, taking your picture. You're just now the regular person from down the road that you were before. So, and that's okay. It's a different season of life. And just like everyone else, we got to go and get our resume together and sit for the interview and hope for the best. And that's actually okay. It's okay because that is life. So understanding that in different seasons we are okay, and what made me actually kind of see it a little differently in Kenya. The dance shows come, dance shows go, and things come, things go. And there were other dance shows, and I remember a colleague of mine who was on a different dance show, amazing dancer, just a break dancer, b-boy, and that show ended, and he did not have work. But he refused to get work outside of dance because of ego once again, and was having a hard time with the family. So bring that back to Bermuda. We do all these things, all these amazing things overseas. We come back and we're like, but I was just the bomb. I was just show my age now.
Yes.
Overseas, and now I've got to start from scratch or somewhat start from scratch. That's okay. Go through the process, because in going through the process, it grounds you back to what everyone is actually experiencing, the challenges that everybody is facing, and how challenging it is in Bermuda. And by going through all those experiences, we experience gratitude and process and all those wonderful things that when we do make it to where we want to be career-wise, we don't take it for granted, and we don't say the silly things like, if they just worked hard, everyone would make it. You understand is nuance to that. You understand it's a lot, that the path is not just straight. Mm-hmm. It's not just a straight shot as far as getting where you need to be. And that's okay. One day at a time.
Sorry, it's easy. And it's interesting hearing you say that, because obviously most of us have not had the opportunity or the experience or the desire, or made our way to go and to come back, which you have actually had. How long were you actually away?
15 years.
15 years, okay, that's long.
But then I had been back for 3.5 years before that, and then before that I was overseas for 5-6 years.
So is it correct that you were overseas in total, maybe say 20 years or so?
Yeah, for most of my adult life.
Okay, and so the question that comes from that is, you obviously went through that, and I'll say this with a smile on my face. So when you was overseas, some reason in Kenya, you were the star. You were the international star. Everybody knew Miss Bowbird is doing nothing. I saw you dancing and all that kind of singing, and you wrote your own songs and then came back to Bermuda, and guess what? You're back to Jamaican. So it's interesting, but talk to us a little bit about how you went through that process and were able to maintain yourself or not until you got a job.
So I feel like a lot of that, when I was in Kenya and I literally became a star overnight, I put myself in therapy right away. Not because there was anything wrong, but I wanted to make sure that I was still grounded, that I would not lose myself to the stardom and become something I would not recognize. So I was in therapy twice a week, talking about those big changes with my therapist, what it was like to, I felt this way. I was looking at the tweets and they were all saying this, and, strategies for, just don't read those anymore, and like different things of that nature. And how do you stay true to yourself? Do I wear full face makeup when I go to the grocery store or not? When I wore jeans and a top, they took a picture of me and put it in the paper and said, look at how she's dressing today. What do I do? Do I need to dress up when I go to the store or not? So we had those conversations, and the whole thing was about not losing myself and maintaining my grounding. So coming back to Bermuda, there was still a sense of loss. Like, oh, wow, that was a great time. Was that the best? I went through in my mind, was that the best time? And now it's not going to be the best time. Yeah. Was that, am I going to be talking about that? You all don't know. When I was young, I was, this great dancer. You all don't know. And, the grandchildren be looking at me like, okay, Granny, whatever. Or is there more ahead? Is there more good times ahead to look forward to? And a lot of that therapy helped to keep me coming back. That there are seasons, and it doesn't matter what season you're in, there's still a beautiful time to continue to create memory, to have influence, to make changes where you are in your capacity, in your community, and that kind of thing in different ways. It can look different, but it actually is the same. And so those kinds of things have helped me coming back to Bermuda so that I would not lose myself and just be somewhere.
And I guess it's interesting in terms of, so what what was the influence that caused you to realize that you need to have a therapist from the start? Because I don't think that's normal that people do that in terms of, I'm enjoying my thing, I'm all that now, and starting to believe themselves in that thing. So if you can, what made you realize, or what was the process to get you to say, you know what, this is going to be wonderful, but I need some grounding?
I had my middle son, who's now in college. He had broken his femur bone, and I had taken him to so the therapist was he was accomplishing several modalities in nutrition and those kinds of things. So someone had mentioned getting him some nutrition to help his bones to heal better. His behavior therapist had mentioned that. So I actually took him to this person for that, so that he would heal well, because there were some issues or what have you. And then as I spoke with him, I was like, oh, this seems pretty cool. What else do you do? So I was just simply speaking with him just to check in and to kind of deal with some things from childhood and that kind of thing. And then I feel like it was maybe a month or two after that, the Westgate Mall attack happened. So I was in there, and then was like, wow, this thing was jolting. And so I was in therapy for about 6 weeks to talk through the Westgate Mall attack. And then I stuck with him as the conversation naturally evolved into stardom. And how I can stay grounded. So it wasn't a natural process. I think it just kind of, life happened. But if people can get to that, and I've also said this to so many people, you don't need to go to therapy just when things are bad. You want to go when things are actually okay, and kind of talk through even when things are great, because sometimes the body doesn't recognize when you've had a great success. The body can take it on as if it's a tragedy. It doesn't understand. That's why when you have someone that wins $1 million, they go out drinking. Just the same as, God forbid, if someone dies, they go out drinking. It's the same. The body doesn't recognize what's a success and what's a tragedy. So how do we have healthy habits when whether we have successes or hard times? So we check in with the therapist. If someone can, hear this message and get encouraged to check in with the therapist, life might be good. Life might just be regular. You just might want to talk things out. Check in. And in our communities, this should not be a taboo subject anymore. In 2025, it really shouldn't be. But it kind of is still.
Yes, very much so. And I just made a note, by the way, because the idea of going to therapy is definitely still taboo. But what's been interesting for me personally is that there are many more people that are saying, yes, I go to a therapist, and it's not a negative; it's just a regular conversation now, which I find quite interesting. Something that I'll just ask this question. So, you talked several times about you going to Kenya. You had the dance show, and you're very well known. I'm going to ask you to talk to us about Joanne, the star. Before you do that, though, I want to just remind the listening audience that we are here on Magic 102.7 on a Sunday evening edition of Insight. Our guest this evening is Miss Joanne Burgess. I forgot to say earlier that persons can certainly call in on 297-1027. There are some WhatsApp messages that are coming in so far. I haven't answered them yet because we're in our conversation, but certainly feel free to call in. And right now, I want Miss Burgess to do what she does. Miss Bo Burgess. Miss Bo?
Bo is better, yes.
Miss Bo, to do what she doesn't want to do, which is to talk to us rather, about the experience of stardom for, you said, overnight success?
Roughly, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And why was it overnight, or why do you classify it as being overnight? And then let's talk about, what is it like to be a star?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So yeah, it was overnight because of the fact that it's nothing that I was planning to do. Okay, it was in my dreams, it was in my plans, my journals, and stuff I wanted to do and could foresee, but didn't know how it was going to happen. Let me just say that. So I went with, and I've told this story before. I went with a friend of mine. We were in a dance company in Kenya, contemporary dance, and we went from practice in our dance sweats and what have you, went to the CBD, and there was a talent agency. And we show up, and everyone else is like full face makeup, heels, long weave down to the ground, size 2, and we're there, like, sweaty, no makeup, sweaty dance clothes, what have you. And, the person comes on, he's like, oh, I can see that some of you have what it takes and some of you don't. That's just like his whole spiel. And I'm just like, why are we here? I went to support her, really. And so I was just annoyed and ready to go. And they said, oh, can you just leave your name and number and just fill out this paper? So I was just like, this is crazy. I'm not coming back here again. But I just wrote down, dancer, singer. They asked, what you do. And 2 weeks later, I got a call. Actually, both got a call and said, can you come down? We want to give you a free photo shoot because that's what we do. Everybody who came can get that. So, I was very green. I just grabbed a few things out of my closet. At that point, you don't know to, call different brands and ask them to dress you. You don't know about all that. You just grab the clothes out of your closet and go. And so I did that. And then I said, oh, you wrote on your paper that you also dance. Can you do some dance poses? So I'm doing a dance pose and what have you. But leg is here and there. And they really enjoyed what I was doing. I was having fun. It was great. And I didn't think anything about it. And maybe it was a month later, they called and they were like, well, the producer of Sakata Mashariki saw your photos and they're looking for a female dance judge. And I'm like, is this real? This must be fake. And I'm thinking this is a prank call. I don't know what's going on. And can you get on to Citizen TV and, get interviewed tomorrow? And I'm like, this can't be real. But I was like, okay, fine. So I go on to Citizen TV, which is the biggest station in Kenya. It's like, big.
Sure.
And like CNN or whatever. I don't know what the biggest station in the U.S. is. And they were like, yeah, we like you, like what you're doing, like what you're saying. Can you start next week? So I'm like, oh, okay. And then we start with the dance show. And at first it's just, everybody trying out and that kind of thing. That part of it was very low budget. And then now the real dance show hits. And it's interesting because, and I've said this before and I'll say it as an encouragement to others, that I really do trust my dreams. And it might sound airy-fairy or what have you, but I do. And when I was in college, I remember having this dream and I saw all these flashing lights and I was wearing a lot of makeup, and I don't like to wear a lot of makeup on my face. So I thought it was strange. And I had this really flashy dress on. And at that point, I really didn't like wearing dresses, more of a tomboy kind of thing. And I was like, oh, this is a weird dream. And when I began to speak, everybody stopped to listen.
In the dream or in real?
In the dream.
Gotcha.
And I thought maybe that was, I don't know, at that time in a church or something. And so we get to the show and, we're seated there. And, my fellow judges on my right and my left are talking. And then they asked Judge Joanne,
Joanne rather, what do you think about this dance group? And as soon as I started to speak, I looked to my right, and there was a dream. The light was flashing. I had all this makeup on my face. I was in this dress, and you could hear a pin drop in the audience. And I started to speak, and everyone was listening to what I had to say. And I say that because some people have dreams and they think it's just a dream. No, write it down. Sometimes it's trying to tell you where you're going to go, and let you know that when you get there, everything's okay. You're going to be all right. So that was the beginning of the stardom, and I was myself. So I say this often. I'm not nice as far as I'll tell you what I really think. I'm a straight up person.
Sure.
It may not be nice. So when I'm critiquing art, it's straight up. So I ended up being branded the Simon Cowell of that dance show.
Okay.
And right away, the keyboard warriors were on it, and saying all kinds of horrible things about me and what have you. And it was absolutely crazy. But what that did, it made me very famous because now people want to know what I was going to say. And so all across East Africa, even West Africa, South Africa, people were watching the show. A friend of mine was even in Jamaica and said, "Oh, you're from Bermuda? Are you the Bermudian who's in Africa on the show?" And she was like, "What?" She was just on the bus and was like, "What? What's going on?" And so it did happen overnight in that sense. And then after the first season, you gotta see if they're going to call you back. So there's that anxiety of whether they'll call you back, and everyone's vying and for that position. So everyone's trashing this person and that person. There's a lot going on. And then finally you get the call, and they increased my clothing budget. So this goes back to the idea of me growing up in Bermuda and seeing people's style for the season as being a uniform, and me not wanting to participate in it. The TV station noted that my unique style was something that people wanted to look forward to and see what I was going to wear every week.
Nice.
So that whole idea of me as a early teenager relinquishing my need to be in style actually aided my brand on the TV show.
Okay.
So my clothing budget grew, my hairstyle budget grew, and I had all kind of colors in my hair and was doing all the things. Makeup budget grew, whatever I basically wanted, whatever theme I wanted. They said, okay, now this year, this year we want you to actually, tell us what you're going to do. Is it an 80s theme? Is it an African theme? Yeah. So every year that it grew. So yeah.
Okay. Call it on. Just on call.
So at the very last episode, I was 8.5 months pregnant, and here I was wearing leather with spikes and eyelashes this big.
Yeah, I saw a picture of that. I did. Yeah.
Yeah, because and platforms like this, performing, and it was just great. That's just basically a part of my journey that now culminated into actually aiding me in being all that I could be in that place.
Well, we're going to come back to that because that's exciting, to be honest, to know what's like. So you would Rihanna and others. Good evening, caller. Thank you for your patience, for calling in. Can you write it down there, please?
Oh, Carly.
I can turn on the radio down to keep you.
Let me go way over her then, because that was okay.
No problem. Okay, what's your question or comment?
Hey, that radio was outside. Okay, yeah. Good evening, Miss Richardson and Miss Bowl. Now, okay, Miss Bowl.
Yes.
I've known of at least two or three. I would say three Bermudians who have set up life in Africa. And it may be different areas from Kenya. I'm not exactly sure. But what I'm getting at is, do you all join together to know where each of you are in those different parts of Africa? I'm saying that there because I know there are people who have interest in visiting Africa, and who may not know you nor the other couple of people I know of personally. And thus, if there was I'm going to put it like this: an association of Bermuda and Africa. That's what I would like to see. And I think that could help Bermudians whom are here to get across to the continent and feel more confident and like not go as a tour like a major company in Bermuda who put on travel agents who puts on tours, but to go there because they've come to know that there is an association of Africa Bermudians, or however it could be named.
Gotcha.
So do you know of other Bermudians who have set up life in Africa?
Well, I mean, you have persons like Quentin Sherlock. I remember he was doing something and thank you for calling as well. He was doing something, he was doing tours as well as I believe he was supporting Bermudians to get set up. Don't quote me on that, but I did visit him in Ghana. And I don't know about an association as such, but there are several African countries who have made it very easy basically for Black people to return and to get set up very easily to be able to work and to live there. I believe Ghana is one of those places. Kenya's not necessarily there yet, but there is a huge Caribbean community in Nairobi, and we were blessed to be a part of that group, and they were very supportive. Everybody supported each other. So that's all I know of as such. I don't think there's enough Bermudians that I know of to make an association for all of Africa, but maybe for Ghana specifically, that could be something that those who are Bermudians who are over there could look at if they feel like that is something that would support others. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I hope that something like that gets set up. I know, like, okay, my wife has been to about 3 or 4 countries in Africa, Kenya included.
Yes.
But she's a visitor there.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that something does get set up as an association of Bermudians in Africa. To me, we could be getting information from our own and feel more confident about it, or feel more relaxed in our heart about it anyway. So I'm just going to leave on the fact that I hope an association of Bermudians in Africa gets set up.
Gotcha.
I leave on that there.
Okay, thank you, caller.
Thank you.
All the best to you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Oh man, always interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Good evening, caller. Welcome to Insight. What's your question or comment?
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Richardson. I have a question for your esteemed guest. Okay.
Hi, Dad.
Okay, what I like to ask is, first of all, I'd like to order a bottle of her pickles.
Okay.
That's the first question. Okay, and second is, my question to her was, how important in being exposed to different environments and perspective, how important was that, or critical was that to your own personal growth and development?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that's any other comments on caller?
That's good. That's a huge question.
That's it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, caller.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Dad. How important was being exposed to other cultures to my personal development growth? It was huge. Leaving Bermuda to attend college the first time at 19. Like I said, I knew everything. I had all my beliefs, all my worldviews in one box, and that was it. And then you realize how wrong you are and how small-minded you are. And this is something I remind my children all the time. What you're experiencing here is not even real. There's so much going on all over the world. Whatever drama is here, don't take it on. It's a small drop in the ocean, a small bit of your experience. You can literally be in another country tomorrow and have a whole different experience.
You have 3 boys, correct?
Yes, I have 3 boys. And so don't take it on. Like, don't take it too seriously. If there's drama, if there's gossip, don't take it too seriously, because it's literally one very tiny perspective when you think of the whole world. And as Bermudians, a lot of times we get caught in this small world view. People start talking about this person and talking about very mundane things and very shallow conversations. And is that what you want to spend your whole life doing? Like, what are you really here for? So yes, having a perspective that someone on the other side of the world is having a totally different experience with very different problems in a very different worldview, is humbling, and it's also encouraging and inspiring for us to take whatever we think is happening around us and see it from a higher perspective.
Okay, and remember, that's the question: is how has it impacted you?
That's how it's impacted me. That's how I actually take things around me, and then in that regard, of course, it's impacted my cooking and the way that the things I might reach for. If one of my kids has a stomach ache, I'm actually getting text messages that my son has a stomach ache, and so I'm telling my oldest son to give him some tea. What I might do first in those instances. It impacts a lot of different things. How I like to walk around without shoes. I can do that. I don't have sore feet. They don't hurt when I walk on the grass or the ground. It feels great. And I guess my Canadian side allows me to want to go swimming anytime. It's not like there's just rule or regulation. So, it impacts when you get different worldviews. Impacts every part of your life, really, and allows you to just operate in different ways. You don't have to just be so stringent in the way that you move.
Gotcha. Today, one question came in terms of just generally speaking. Talk to us about motherhood. What does Joanne say about motherhood? That's the question. Came out about the 3 boys.
Just motherhood?
Yeah. Well, in that sense.
Okay.
Or parenthood.
Parenthood. I feel like when I had my first kid, I knew everything about parenting, and then now that I have 3, I don't know anything about parenting. And I say that once again jokingly because each child is so unique. Mm-hmm. And has different needs and a different personality. And so one method that may work for one child is not going to necessarily work for the other child. And comparing children is never, ever a good idea at all.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm the type of parent where I'm fun until I'm not, is how I say it. Like we're got mutual respect going on. We're fun. Everything's great. But if something is without respect, then you're going to see a different side of me. So the kids are aware of that. So I like to parent where my kids can tell me anything, where they can be comfortable, and I would hope they wouldn't feel judged. At this stage in my life, now that I have 2 adult children, I'm okay with telling them, oh, now you realize that us as adults, we're still trying to figure it out too, and we don't have all the answers. I hope you understand that. So when you have an adult that says something hurtful to you or does the wrong thing, you understand that that person is still finding their way. Don't take it on. They haven't figured themselves out yet. So because sometimes we're like, oh my God, this person said this and it just derailed me for my whole life. Mm-hmm. And you didn't realize that person was lost. That person was bitter. That person had not gone through their own self-process. So now, instead of seeing yourself as quote unquote below someone because they're an adult and you're a child, you're also an adult. You can meet them face to face and say, you're not doing the right thing, and I see that, but I'm going to choose to go this way and actually do what I need to do on this side. So those are some of the conversations that we have. So yeah.
And when you say adult children, how old are your children?
So my 2 older ones are 18 and almost 20.
Okay. And the younger one is still young?
9. He's 9.
It really is 9. It's like that some time ago. And that's interesting. And so, normally, for Anthony, when you use the word discipline, it's a negative. A few weeks ago, we had a guest on, and they explained that discipline is structure, is regularity, is routine, is process. And for me, the light bulb went on in terms of discipline it actually is fundamentally positive. The negative is a consequence of maybe not doing what you're supposed to do.
I agree.
And so, the question I was going to ask for you is, how does mommy handle discipline?
Discipline, I think like that, like what you're saying. I'm not really a hitter or that kind of thing. That's not really my thing. I have done it in the past. Don't really feel great about that. Never ever beatings. That was never ever my thing. Right. My kids would laugh because they knew that my short-term memory was never great. So if I put them on timeout, I probably forgot, and they never actually were on timeout. Uh-huh. So that we joke about it now. But as far as discipline, this is what you have to do. This is the expectations that I have. Mm-hmm. This is the type of respect I expect you to carry. This is the type of character I expect you to operate in. I don't expect you to lie no matter how hard it is. Just if you forgot, if you didn't take out the trash, say, I didn't take out the trash. I got carried away with my game. Just say that. Don't make up a story. These are the conversations that, I appreciate with my children. And then, them, getting to the point where they are independent to a sense that they can accomplish tasks, they can live on the earth, but they can, do what they need to do. But then they also know that I'm here if you need support. I can catch you if you fall. So not just, now they're adults, you're just out there by yourself and don't call me, my job is done. No. I'm still here. I'm still your mom. You need me. I'm here. If I don't have it, we'll figure it out. And that's where I come from as a parent.
And you said earlier that you have 2 adult children and one's a minor. How do you define, or what's your reference point for them being adults?
What's my reference point? You mean like they're 18? Their age?
Is that the reason why you call them adults? Because remember earlier, to use your deep thought, by the way, is that age, the chronological age, is not necessarily anything. It's more experience and influence. That's why it's asked the question. So,
well, yes, but then society sees them as an adult. God forbid they go do something crazy. They're going to be charged as an adult.
Gotcha.
God forbid. But so society sees them as an adult. They can vote. They can drink if they want to. So they have some level of access.
Okay.
They don't have as much access or influence as I do, but they're like infant adults, if you want to. Since we don't have any.
No, that's fine. I'm just asking because, like I said earlier, you think these things deeply, and so just trying to understand what your reference point was.
Yeah, they're like fledgling adults. I would definitely say fledgling adults. So it's a sense of giving them space. I think when they were about 15, 16, I automatically started changing my language towards my sons.
Okay.
So instead of saying, do that, wash the dishes and clean up, I would like you to.
Okay.
I'd be very happy if you did. So instead of them hearing a mom that is commanding and demanding, it's the language is changing because I'm realizing you're about to become a man. And I'm not going to create mama's boys.
Wow.
I am going to create men who are not weaponizing incompetence, but understanding their role in this space is to support. So I already started changing my language and they were 15, 16 with that in mind.
Now, that's a big phrase, by the way. Weaponizing incompetence.
Yes.
Now, that's a whole conversation.
Yes, it is.
And it's not, well, anyway, we're going to go here because talk to us about what that means to you, what's in practice, and how have you developed that mindset about weaponizing incompetence from a mama to a son.
I can't tell you. No, I'm joking. Yes. So we.
It's very important, by the way.
Yes. So oftentimes and I believe it still happens in Bermuda, definitely all around the world, where the daughter is taught to be super responsible when she's doing all the chores, and the son is just off playing football, you know. And so she's learning to be very responsible when she gets to be, whatever age to run her household, and she's ready. But he's not ready because he was never. It's just like he's just a boy, that kind of idea. Yes. He's just going to have fun. Or even the virginity aspect, we can go there. Like, we must protect her purity at all costs. Like it's up for sale or something. And then he's a man. He can just do whatever he wants. So there's these whole different standards. And then what that does, it really prepares for a train wreck of a society. When you talk about people coming together in partnerships, it really just is not a good. It's just not going to work if you want to stabilize society as far as partnerships and relationships and that kind of thing. Because what happens in those situations, if one of those, and this doesn't have to be women or men, you can, like I said, you can switch it out. If one person has been raised very responsibly, and they usually get with someone who has an opposite experience,
okay, one
person has to carry the emotional labor of the other one. It usually comes with not just, expectations or so-and-so find my whatever, and literally you can find my cup, and literally if the person opened the cabinet they could find the cup. But then or you ask someone might ask their weaponizing competence. Here's a great example. You ask someone to fold the clothes and they would do it so badly on purpose that you'll just say, I'll just do it myself, and then perfect. weaponizing companies, you'll never ask them again because they did it so badly that time. And so that person continues that labor and won't ask them because it's easier to do it themselves than to ask a partner who is just going to either pretend that they can't do it or they actually can't do it. And also with that, the emotional labor of whining and complaining and not thinking their role is to do that, and maybe even using some religious scripture to back up why they shouldn't do that. That's all around the weaponized incompetence. So we don't want to do that in this generation with our sons or our daughters. We want to raise functional people in society with emotional capabilities, with physical capabilities to function, not just adults outside of the home, but also in the home as well, with care and competence.
And so that's very interesting. And you're being polite, I guess.
Yes.
So in some respects, and I'll just use this generically, and it is our underscore that I'm using this generically. So we raise our girls, our females, to be responsible, and effectively raise our males to be irresponsible, and they come together as a couple, responsible female, irresponsible male, natural clash. Mm-hmm. So that's, in my mind, you're giving good clarity around that. Mm-hmm. My question then becomes, which I was going to ask you after, but time's not going to permit, it's, are we changing how we teach people or what we do in the family system, right, whereby now we're raising potentially both persons being irresponsible, males and females?
I hope not. I don't know. I hope not.
Because now what happens is there is much more liberalization, certainly in terms of how we look at things. You talk about sexual interactions, we talk about how we dress, talk about education. The things now seem to be much more generic in that I don't necessarily see anyone being like a greater emphasis on males or females. It seems to be more generic now that everybody's irresponsible.
I don't know if everyone's irresponsible. I see the younger men are not afraid to engage in baking or the household chores, and everybody is kind of doing stuff together. I think that is in my experience, that's a good thing.
So in your friend set, let's call it, you see that they are now balancing skills a bit?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, there's multiple examples either way, but that's what I've experienced basically. Yeah.
Well, that's a good thing for society. That's the case because again, I'm being polite about it, but in the past we've been irresponsible as a family, and it's one of the conversations that we are afraid to have in terms of, certainly the black family, we're afraid to have a conversation in terms of what, like, irrespective, as you say, irrespective of our financial situation or whatever, it's we're afraid to have the conversation about being responsible within our own families, about the partnership coming together, having the children, preparing them for school, the whole 9 yards, and teaching them to be responsible. We have lost our way.
In some ways, perhaps, that's true. Yeah.
Interesting comment that came in also is, talk to us a bit about, sorry, in Bermuda, we have a lot of organized religion, right? Talk to us about your experience from Bermuda, going overseas and maybe coming back, that perspective.
Organized religion? You mean like Christianity? Or you mean Islam? Or what are you talking about?
Any of them. I think they're all organized religions.
Yes.
That's why I did not specify Christianity, by the way.
I mean, I guess we can specify Christianity because there is Christian privilege in Bermuda, and that's one thing I did not recognize until I was in countries where Christianity was not the dominant religion, and you realize, oh, you do actually have Christian privilege, either being a Christian and being a part of a church, or having been brought up in Christianity and knowing that process. You get privilege in that. So when I lived in Israel, I was out of the loop because I'm not Jewish, and I didn't understand all of that. And you could see how it was easier to, just like here, to be a part of the group, to be a part of the society, the community. When you want people to vote for you, you say, I go to this church, and that's a Christian privilege. You understand that, right? So firstly, understanding the privilege of the dominant religion in Bermuda is a thing. It is a thing. There is no persecution like this whole American right-wing whatever. There's no persecution of Christianity. Christianity is the dominant thing here. And often Bermuda Christianity looks very different than Christianity in different places. And that is because oftentimes the religion, well, often, if not all the time, literally mirrors the culture. Who said that religion is a deification of culture? I can't remember who said that. But that is a saying. If you think of it that way, Bermuda Christianity looks like Bermuda.
And again, to listen audience, those that are on Facebook, you can see her facial expression, right? And again, just being polite, which is a good thing. But I want to dig that a little bit because I've never thought about that, by the way, in terms of Christian privilege in Bermuda. But we can use marriage as an example.
Yes.
I think that's an obvious one. So for the listening audience and me, let's talk more directly about this whole idea of Christian privilege.
Okay. Well, I just talked about it. Mm-hmm. You go to, in our case, we're also political people. It's time to vote. Mm-hmm. And you can say, I'm also a Christian, and people will just vote for you because they think that puts you up on some higher moral ground.
Okay.
People should not do that because of your religion. They should actually look at what you are doing in your character. Does your actions actually display good character? But as soon as you say that word, there's trust.
Okay.
Now, moving overseas and understanding that, when you're interacting with Maasai and Kikuyu and Luo and Luya and all kinds of different cultures, or even going over to Papua New Guinea and the different tribes over there or wherever, you understand that they actually know what they believed before the British showed up and made them believe in Christianity.
Okay.
They actually know, and there's a lot of people who are still following their indigenous traditions of what they believed, who they prayed to, how that governs their life morally,
yes,
and their character, and how they understand the relationship between the divine and nature, and when good times come and bad times come, and what they need to do to make sure that they are living out their destiny.
Okay.
And in Bermuda, we still think that, oh my God, they're lost and going to hell. Mm-hmm. Really? Mm-hmm. Somebody's gonna get mad when I say this, but
it's an interesting conversation.
People.
Pretend it's just you and me.
Many cultures, all cultures have belief systems that predate European Christianity by millennia. Yes. That worked for them, where there were ancient writings, there were belief systems that actually filtered into courts of law. Mm-hmm. We tend to think that all of the continent of Africa was just running around doing like in disarray until the British showed up. Yes. And that is a belief that was perpetuated, especially to us being a British colony, that is totally incorrect.
Yes.
Where especially the Luos had a codified law system that was based on their religion that actually governed birth and death and marriage and those kinds of things. And in the Kikuyu, and I'll say this, we talked about marriage, in the Kikuyu traditions, pre-British, women were allowed to marry if there wasn't enough men around.
Okay.
Hello.
Yes.
We don't want to hear these things because it doesn't fit in our Bermudian box of what we think should be. And I can talk about many examples like that. So when you understand and you sit down with elders and they talk about their traditions and how, there's a beautiful elder, and a lot of the silver jewelry that I wear, I would just see him hammering that out for me, and he'd be telling me about history and culture. And he was also deeply concerned about what he saw happening on this side of the world.
Yes.
I mean, during COVID and the whole George Floyd, I went in to get some earrings, and before he didn't greet me, he just, oh, boy, what is happening? What are they doing to our brothers and sisters in the Americas? Why are they doing this? And right there, we start to have this conversation, and about, protection and culture and community. And if they were in Kenya, how there would be, in the olden days, how there would be support around this kind of thing and all of that. And there's another culture, and I can't remember which tribe it was, but in their area, I wish I remember the name of the tribe, when there wasn't rain, when there was no rain coming and the crops were not growing, it was time for them to create. They made a tent, and the painters, the dancers, the sculptors, the healers would go in and paint and sculpt and dance and create. And they believe that that's what will make the rain come. There was a lack of rain because there was a lack of creativity. And that is how they connected those two things. So there's beauty in understanding different cultures that predate what was forced upon us. And in understanding that, we actually might see a better picture
of life, really. It kind of answers questions that we don't know we're asking as Black people, actually.
And clearly, I think I understand the sensitivity around this. It's interesting. I'm trying to think of the correct question to ask, and I guess it's going to be this. So for Joanne, what would, if you could do it, and we are having a conversation, what would you say to the organized religions in Bermuda, whether it be Christianity, Muslim, or otherwise? What comment would you say? No, put it this way: what would you say to parents who have young children now coming up from a religious point of view? What should they do in terms of exposure or not exposure? What would you manage that? How would you manage that?
I just want to hear what the question exactly where we're going with it. What do you mean? Which question are you asking?
What would your comment be in terms of parents with young children, let's say a 5-year-old, exposing them to religion, whatever it is?
Christianity or any religion?
Anyone.
I think it would be a good idea for parents to expose their children to other, because culture and religion are like this. So you can't really take one from the other. It's only where they're different when the religion has been forced upon you and it's not natural. So you have a culture and a religion over here, but usually the culture and religion are like this. So I feel like it's a good idea to expose children to many cultures and many religions and show it as a term of respect. And show what other people do and how this is a beautiful thing. When we lived in Kenya, we would, celebrate Eid with our Muslim brothers and sisters. We would celebrate Holi and Diwali and these kinds of things as well with the Indian Kenyan communities, and respectfully, and join in a way where we were invited into the space. And that is, I feel like more of us need to do that, to be able to try new foods and to experience new types of ceremony and to engage in other types of ritual that we can actually see the beauty in it and not approach it from a eye of judgment. It's the worst thing to go around thinking that you are so high and mighty, that you have all the knowledge and everyone else is somewhere lost. That is extremely arrogant to think that you have nothing to learn from anyone else. It's actually a sad thing. And I would encourage everyone to kind of humble themselves a bit and understand that there is beauty and that there is knowledge all over the world. If we open our eyes and we sit and we desire to learn, we might learn something that literally might open our hearts and end up saving our lives in some way.
Okay. And, again, I certainly understand all those kind of things. And come back to Bermuda now. Bermuda is very, as you said earlier, we're very, my word, saturated with Christianity. And I never thought about it, though, in terms of, as politicians, we say, okay, I go to X church, Christian church, and right away you get all the so-called, well, there is a preponderance of Christians voting for you. Not everybody. Because,
preponderance, I would say that.
That's a nice word.
Yes.
And I just never thought about that, by the way, and some people abuse it. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Because they'll go to a church, physical church, just because it's election time, which I just don't like that personally. Like to go around just for the picture, for the photo op, I don't like that at all. So that's kind of crazy. So I take that point. Well, wrapping up now, and obviously a very, very interesting conversation. I want to go back a bit because it was exciting to me, by the way, about the superstar Joanne. They gave you this before the pressing code, and you had to take the code, which is fine, right? So you have no clothing, but what else was different? And like, what did you really enjoy about that you may miss now, or like that we would not necessarily know? I mean, you had the budget, buy whatever clothes you like. You set the theme, right? People, what is Joanne wearing this year? And that will set the trend for the marketers and whatever.
Yeah.
You had security guards.
Chauffeur. Yes, I had a driver. Yes.
Okay. So what do you miss about it?
All of it.
Okay. Allow yourself to tell us what you miss about it. Like, how was your day? How was the month, or how did it go?
I mean, I was teaching. I had my own school, and so that was Monday to Friday, and then after, my life was quite busy, still busy, and people always ask me how I do a lot of things, and I think I practice it then. Monday to Friday, still teaching, running the school, making sure everything's good. And twice a week in the evenings or 3 times I would teach yoga. And then you're getting ready for the dance. So you're either doing choreography when there's no yoga or before or after yoga. There's you got to get your facial and your nails done, and everything is, the hair preparation so that you're ready for the show. Now on Saturday morning, you arrive at 5 a.m. and that's when the makeup starts. So this is TV makeup. This is makeup that takes hours to do. You got to look perfect on set. And then they're constantly, padding and prepping and changing. And then when you change your outfit, the makeup has to change and the hairstyle has to change and all of that. And then, you start to wonder, are people your friends because they're your friends, or they just kind of want to be around you? I don't know. So, and it was just like navigating all those kinds of things, and then understanding how I would move when the TV show came on. There was some anxiety there, that performance anxiety. What did I do? Is it gonna, air how I wanted to air? Is the angle gonna be how I wanted to be? The social media team was always prepped and ready to go. Then you had the marketing team who was also searching for branding deals and magazine covers and that kind of thing. So all those things all had to flow like a machine. So I was literally in charge of my own brand, although I did give the team latitude because of the fact that I'm introvert. There are certain things I would not have put out that I gave them latitude to put out, because I knew that me not having control actually was better for my brand. Okay. So I don't know if you could understand that. So I might not want to put out a certain thing. I might think my angle doesn't look good, but they're not seeing it from that lens. So them putting that out and it going viral is because I gave them that latitude. It was just certain things, my brand doesn't talk about Kenyan politics. Don't want to see alcohol, that we broke that a couple times, just for brand's sake. Things, don't talk about my kids. So yeah, it was, so I miss a lot of that, but it's just, to me, it's a different season right now. Yes. Right now it's still good. I'm still like, life is good. So it's not like I went from here to there. It's just a difference. We see the journey, and in a lot of ways I've matured, and I actually have more tools now, even then. In that case, going back to the idea and the original thing of coming here and talking about wanting to see things change fast. Yes. And as a young person, and maybe getting upset when you don't see those changes happening as fast as you think they should happen. And in each stage of my life, in each country, I experienced that, even now to some degree. But I think that what being middle-aged has given me is the patience to know that it will come full circle. Okay. And I don't need to sacrifice my character or my patience or anything of that nature, because I want to make this thing happen faster, this change that I want to see. I want to see equity for all people. I want to see, cost of living get in order. I know, we know the government's working on, but we want to see these things happen faster because it affects us, and we're so invested personally. We want to see everyone be able to own a house, and we want to see those people that are on the street sleeping at night to have a home, and the people that are suffering with mental health, we want to see them get help, and we want to see all these things happen right now. And sometimes as a young person, it gets overwhelming, but what we realize is we stay the course and we continue to make influence in the space that we're making influence in, we will see it come full circle. But we must keep our character at a standard so that when it happens, we are in the position to be able to receive it, not with bitterness, but because we knew that it will be ready. Because if we sacrifice our character when it happens, we won't appreciate it, we'll miss it because we would have become bitter by then. And that's not what we want. We don't want anarchy. We want to be able to move in unity. We want to be able to support the community in a holistic way. So, yeah.
Wow. And that's obviously an excellent summary in terms of let us collectively do what we can do, influence where we can, but be patient and not become bitter.
That's right.
And I'm smiling, by the way, because you didn't, listening audience, she did not know this. I was smiling because the argument normally is that the older generation wants to keep things the same, and younger generation wants to change everything. And at some level, what do you think you are? Are you the young one or the older one? Do you think you want to see things more stay the same or change?
I think in that case, I'm the young one.
Okay, I'm done.
Yeah, in that case, I'm the young one. I want to see things change.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And do you think that young people, the younger generation, see you as the change agent or a part of the older generation?
I think overall they see me as a change agent. I think they do. I think they don't understand where I'm coming from. But I think they do see me as a change agent in that regard, being in conversation and being able to relate and being able to identify with them the challenges that they face and how hard it is, and the empathy as opposed to just saying just get on with it. That kind of tone or sentiment.
So that was really my smile, by the way. So I'm not going to tell you before you come on here, but when I get you, I'll ask the question because that was my question. Like, where do you fit, and how do others see you, and how do you perceive that you're being seen by others? Are you old or young, older or younger, from their perspective?
And I think an auntie told me this one time. One day you'll realize that you don't have to fight every battle. And that is but that's how I know I'm middle-aged, because I want to see things change. But I have the patience to know that it will come full circle. And I also have the skill to know that every battle is not mine to fight.
Yes. Okay. Well done. The other thing I'll say that's resonating with me is, you said it already, right? That the old way was just work hard and it'll happen. Now it's more than that.
Yeah.
And so if you will just restate that comment, and then, because I think, it's very important for people to hear that from a younger person.
Yeah, it's not just about working hard and everything just it's going to go your way, or you're going to be able to do what you have to do. It's more stealthy than that. It's more strategy than that. And then it's also being able to pivot in the middle of reaching your goals and saying, do I need to readjust my expectations? And going back to the point I made earlier is understanding that we don't need to tie our idea of self-worth to our possessions, but tying our self-worth to knowing who we are as a person, because a lot of people don't take time to know who they are. And what is the memories you're creating in your home, the love that you're giving your children, your partners, how you're showing up every day at work, the people that you're affecting because you know that you're an amazing person, the kind word that you speak, that little extra that you do. How are you, just being a person that is kind, not just because you say I'm kind because I have this religious connection, but I'm kind because of my actions. I am showing it, I am living it. I'm not wearing a label, I'm just being. This is where I feel like the call to action is.
Gotcha. Well, do you have any final comments?
I don't know, should there be a final comment?
No, for tonight.
I think the final comment would be to everybody, just to know that change will happen. And in order to be a part of the change, we must use our voice. We must use our actions. And as we use our voice and we use our actions, we do it in a way with skill. We do it in a way of confidence, and we do it in a way that keeps our character sound. And we honor our elders still. We don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We honor where we've come from, while at the same time seeing where we're going and understanding that both are beautiful. And that one day we'll be the elders. So we're going to want to be treated with respect as well. So let's listen to those who have walked this journey before us, even with all of their flaws, and take that information and be the best that we can be. Now that we have more information, we do more with that information. And always remember to keep a heart no matter what happens to you, no matter how you're treated, no matter you experience a terrorist attack or what happens in your life. There's no need to become bitter, but you can always be better in this world, basically.
And last question for me is, so people have listened to you tonight, very interesting, very informative, and lots more questions to come. How generally do they contact Joanne Bowe to get more information if they want to hear more about you? What's the best?
You can look me up on Instagram at JO number one, once again, on my political handle, Joanne Bowe Burgess on Instagram. You can hit me up on email, Joanne Bowe Burgess, no hyphen, @gmail.com. I'm on TikTok, but that's more of a fun thing more than a professional thing.
Okay, fair enough.
So, people can hit me up. They usually know where to find me if they want to find me. And I'm always willing to talk. I'm always willing to support.
And yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll say thank you again for coming on by. I've learned, this is where we go wrong, right? I have known you. I've known you as Joanne for a long period of time, right? But certainly learned lots about you this evening. Certainly very, very interesting, very in-depth. As you said, you're a deep thinker. Quite surprised that you described yourself as an introvert. That's the point. All that you do, the dance and the singing, just how you present yourself, how you dress, how you carry yourself, all this kind of things, right? So quite surprised. But again, the idea tonight was for you to show yourself and speak from your own experiences, right? And certainly to be an encouragement. And I think I'm very pleased that you decided to come.
Thank you
as that mid voice basically, and able to represent both young and older and how they all interconnect, and certainly to give a different presentation on your world experiences, and to know that you are very, very, very well experienced, very knowledgeable, very articulate, by the way.
Thank you.
And want you to carry on with what you're doing. To the listening audience, thank you for joining us here on Magic 102.7 on your Sunday evening for another edition of Insight. And we're going to carry this theme because next week our guest is, I'm not going to tell you who the person is going to be, but our guest is going to be a young person who understood that in the context of Bermuda, they had to pivot in order to carry on their success. And so we're going to talk about the effect of that personal sacrifice. We have to know what our future is and then make the decisions now, commit to them, make sacrifices, and then you'll achieve differently if that's what you choose to do. But first and foremost, it's knowing yourself and being prepared to make that decision to actually change. And then generally to the listening audience, if you're out early or late, I always say, please make sure that you're wearing a flashlight or high visibility vest, because you want to give drivers and riders as much notice as possible. People are driving early and late, they're tired, on their cell phones, just generally distracted. And what we don't want to do is have any undue collisions. And so if you do all those things, then we should be fine. And lastly, please, please, please choose to do something for somebody else that makes them smile, and you'll be surprised to the degree to which it has a positive benefit for you. So again, Bermuda, until next week, thank you for joining us here on Magic 102.7, and we will see you on Insight.
Bermuda Live on